Hello and welcome back for another standard gameplay video. Today we're going to be revisiting this Izzet Prowess deck. Previously I played it in best of 1, and today we're going to take it into a league and play some best of 3. The deck is an aggro deck that's looking to dump some Prowess creatures into play and then utilize cantrips, bounce spells, and a few burn spells to try and beat your opponent with combat damage. We're running 4 copies of Elusive Otter, 1/1 with Prowess. Also has an adventure where we can put some 1/1 counters on our creatures. Stormchaser's Talent, one of the better cards in the deck, lets us create a Prowess creature when it comes into play. Then we can level it up for 4 mana, return an instant or sorcery card back to our hand from our graveyard. And then for 6 mana, we can level it up again. And then whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we get to create a 1/1 with Prowess. 2 copies of Drakecatcher, 2 mana, 1/3 with Vigilance and Prowess, and then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we get to put some incubation counters on it. Then by removing 3 counters, we can create a 2/2 Drake with flying, so the evasiveness can help us push more damage in the air. And then the last creature is the Slickshot Show-Off, 2 mana, 2/1 with flying and haste, and then whenever we cast a non-creature spell, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Additionally, we can plot this for 2 mana and then play it out at a later turn for 0. Helps play around things like open removal, and we can try to have a big turn where we just overwhelm our opponent's mana. Then when it comes to spells, we're running 4 copies of Opt and 2 copies of Sleight of Hand as our cheap cantrips. We also have 4 copies of Boomerang Basics, a 1 mana sorcery that lets us return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and if we control that permanent, we get to draw a card. One of the prime targets to bounce is Stormchaser's Talent, especially early in the game. Occasionally we might even bounce this after the talent has leveled up to Chapter 2, and occasionally it can also be used to bounce one of our opponent's permanents or creatures out of the way to help push damage. Other interaction we have in the deck is 1 copy of Bounce Off, returning target creature to its owner's hand. Can be used to protect one of our Otters or the Slickshot, or to remove a blocker from our opponent's side of the board. Similar with Into the Floodmaw, usually going to bounce a creature, but we can gift our opponent a tapped fish and bounce any card. Secret Identity, a 1 mana instant, can be used to protect one of our creatures by giving it hexproof, or we can use the other option and turn it into a base power 3/4 and give it flying and vigilance. Good to help some of our Otter tokens attack over ground blockers. Burst Lightning as a cheap removal spell that we can use to burn out small creatures. It can also be pointed at face, and late in the game we can kick it for 4 mana to deal 4 damage instead of 2. 1 copy of Wild Ride gives target creature +3/+0 in haste, and then we can harmonize it for 4 from the graveyard. And lastly, there are 4 copies of Stock Up as a more expensive cantrip later in the game. For the mana base, we're playing 5 islands, the full playset of Riverpire Verge, as well as the full playset of Spire, Bluff Canal, and Steam Vents. We have a single copy of Breeding Pool, which we can use for Elusive Otter's adventure ability, and 3 copies of Multiversal Passage, which we could also use to get green mana if needed. For the sideboard, we have 2 copies of Spell Pierce and 2 copies of Spell Snare, as well as 2 copies of Fire Magic, 1 copy of Torch the Tower, 3 copies of Soul Guide Lantern, 2 copies of Seer, 1 Ral Crackling Wit, 4 mana Planeswalker. Whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we get to put a loyalty counter on him. Then for +1, we can create a blue Otter token with Prowess. For -3, we could draw 3 cards and discard 2. And if he gets up to 10 loyalty, we can draw 3 cards and then get an emblem that gives all of our instant and sorcery spells Storm. And lastly, there are 2 copies of Wan Shitang Librarian in the deck. The sideboard is largely targeted at some of the more predominant decks in the format, trying to improve our win odds versus graveyard strategies and the green landfall decks that are floating around the format. The deck did pretty well when we used it in best of 1, and I'm hoping we're going to see a similar performance here today in the upcoming 5 matches. Before we jump into the gameplay, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe the video. It really helps the channel. And without further ado, let's jump into the games. We've lost a die roll here. This hand has some interaction, but no way to pressure our opponent. I think we can do better. And I think that this is not a very good 6. But we'll keep it. Put back one of the lands. Theoretically, we should be drawing into a lot of action here. And we'll lead off with Burst Lightning. Take out the elves. Just don't want them to get too far ahead before we can establish ourselves. Play out the Stormchaser's talent and a tapped Steam Vents. Third land drop from our opponent. No block. We'll opt first. Another Stormchaser's talent is good. We can play that out. And then we'll opt again. Elusive Otter. Probably not needed at this point. So we're looking for a little bit more interaction. Fourth land from our opponent, and they have Terror of the Peaks, so we're going to be in a bit of trouble here. We could always use Secret Identity to try and take it out. Can cast Show Off. Only 9 damage coming in if we cast a Secret Identity, so we'll hold it. Try and give our Slickshot. Oh boy. This is going to be rough. We'll give Hexproof to the Show Off. I would hold back with both Terrors here. Very hard for the Prowess deck to get through, especially with only 1 card in hand. Opponent is deep in the tank. They decide to attack in. And Dreamcatcher is not going to do it here. So we're out of spells. If we return something with Stormchaser's talent, our opponent is going to know exactly what we grabbed. And there's nothing we can grab here that can deal enough damage, so we have to go to sideboarding. We'll bring in the Seer and probably torch the tower. And let's see, what should we cut? Need to drop 3 cards. We'll get rid of a Sleight of Hand. Another Sleight of Hand. And maybe a Stock Up. And we'll give this a try. Doesn't look like we're suited very well to answer these large creatures that our opponent's ramping into. So we have to hope they stumble over their mana, and we can take out their early mana dorks. This hand is also not very good. Mulligan. Again, no removal here. A couple bounce spells. Not happy about it, but I don't think going down to 5 will be any better. Love to see our opponent miss a mana dork here, and they do. So that gives us time to get the Slickshot down. The next turn we can bounce a couple times and try and tempo our opponent out. We'll opt first. Don't need another land. We play out the Steam Vents tapped, then we can play out the Stormchaser's talent with the Verge. Hit for 8. Three mana from our opponent. They play out a Tactician, so this should be game here. We'll use Into the Flood Maw. sleight of hand. And then burst lightning to face. Didn't have to show off any of our sideboard cards here, although there's nothing groundbreaking from our side. And I think in the post-sideboard matches, we probably just run it back. Just take another look here. Yeah, nothing super useful. Fire magic, I suppose, could be used to take care of a Llanowar Elves. But casting for 3 mana on the draw to take out some of their larger mana dorks, probably not going to happen. So maybe we trim another stock up, give that a try. Would love to see 7 cards here that we can actually keep. 1 land only produces red mana. I have to mulligan again. So we've had some bad variants so far. And this we can keep, and we'll get rid of the probably. So I want to get rid of the steam vents, but yeah, we'll get rid of the island. Our opponent's either going to win by a landslide or not at all, so I don't think the 2 points of damage, if we have to shock ourselves, will make that much of a difference. So again, we're looking to see a slow start from our opponent. We don't have any way to pressure them yet. And they start on an Elves, so we will play out the Verge, use Burst Lightning. Our opponent plays out another mana dork. We have a tough decision to make, whether to use the Seer or to hold it for something a little bigger. They have another Mentor. Torture Tower is great, so we can just use that here. And then here we'll play out a Steam Vents tapped. Unfortunately, without any creatures in play, using these burn spells is wasted damage. And so when we do draw into something, we're going to have a bit tougher time closing the window. We'll sleight of hand first, see what we draw into. Boomerang basics and the steam vents. We'll take the boomerang. And then I think, again, we just have to try and bottleneck them on mana. Eventually they have to run out of lands, right? But not today. Intrepid can only play out dinosaurs. We'll play out the Stormchaser's talent. Pause here indicates our opponent might have a burn spell of their own. We'll lead on Wild Ride, see if our opponent wants to take out our Otter. And then, honestly, we'll probably Boomerang Basics the Stormchaser's talent here. Draw a card. Another Boomerang Basics is great. And we'll play out the talent again. Hit for 7. Opponent takes that very quickly, so looking to see a big dinosaur here. And they hit their 5th land drop. Calamity. What does this do when it hits us? Nothing yet. So here we're going to be trying to do 11 damage. We'll start with Opt. Don't need a Canal. Another Otter. We'll Boomerang Basics the Stormchaser's talent. Just draw into a land. Unfortunate. Gets us up to 8 here. And looks like we are actually going to win. So we'll name red, pay the life. And then we can use Groby's Bounty here for 1. and this will give 2 Prowess triggers and 1 counter. And that's 11 exactly. Very close game. Right, we won the die roll here. We'll play first. I think we could do better. Try and lead on some early aggression, and this will do. We'll keep, and then as much as I want to keep this stock up, I think that's the card that has to go back. Start on the Spire Bluff, play out the talent, pass the turn. Verge, we're likely to lose the Otter here. They played out a Moon Shadow instead. I think it's just too important to kill that here. And then probably not going to use Secret Identity to protect an Otter, so I will play a tap land. Likeness Looter, going to copy Moon Shadow. We'll Boomerang Basics our Stormchaser's talent. Draw into another land here, unfortunately. We can play out the Verge. Unlikely we'll need 4 mana next turn. Hit for 3, pass the turn. Opponent's going to swing back for 7. If they don't, they loot instead, so maybe they're going to try and reanimate something. Here's the Oculus. It's going to be very difficult for us to get past. Definitely going to need Graveyard Hate in this deck. Lead on an Opt. Really our only option here is to bounce the Oculus. There's a Boomerang Basics, so we won't hesitate to fire that off. And there's no need to play out a land yet. Try and attack in. Opponent trumps. And so here we'll play out a Breeding Pool tapped. Pass the turn. They try and hex one of our tokens. That's fine. Then they play out a Diviner. Let them surveil here. And take our draw step. It's a bounce off. We could use this to bounce the Diviner. We could bounce whatever they play next turn. I'm definitely going to shock in here. And actually level up the Stormchaser's talent. Take a Boomerang Basics. Then we can use our bounce off. Bounce the Diviner. Hit for 2. Really, we're just trying to get Stormchaser's talent up to the 3rd level. Maybe we can overwhelm our opponents with a wide board. They play out the Diviner again, manually tapping out of blue. It's surprising they didn't leave up a white land. So this will grab the Oculus. Doubles it up. We've pretty much lost at this point. Well, second Boomerang Basics. So let's see. We're definitely going to bounce the token. That will disappear. Secret Identity will turn our token into 3/4, which will have 2 Prowess triggers, so it'll be 5. Boomerang basics would be 6, so that's not enough to kill our opponent. They have plenty of cards left to replay the Oculus. We can attack into it. We'll give that a try, and we'll play this first to incentivize our opponent blocking. They just take it. Based on that, I think we're going to Boomerang basics our talent. And we get 2 more here, so we'll create a couple Otters. Pass the turn. Looks like they're hard casting an Oculus. What's the other mode on emptiness? Just weakens one of our creatures. Pretty much not getting through on the ground, and getting through on the air is also going to be difficult. So we're going to need a good series of cantrips here, and a steam fence is not going to do it. We can bounce one of these Oculus. We could give one of our creatures flying. Burn directly to face. Again, I just don't see any way that we're getting through this. They could also be holding up removal at this point. And we don't even have the follow-up here, so we have to go to sideboarding and try and get them in the next 2 games. There's going to be a lot of creatures coming in here. Definitely want all 3 Soul Guide Lantern. The bounce spells are probably a bit better than the burn spells in this matchup. We'll trim one of these couple stock-ups, actually. Drake Hatcher's not terrible. I think we're going to get rid of a Sleight of Hand. Do we want Wang Shi Tong? Our opponent isn't searching, and it's not going to be terribly large when it comes into play. I think not. We'll give this a try. We'll play first. Slickshot could give us a quick early game. We'll give it a try. I don't think mulliganing aggressively for Graveyard Hate is necessarily the correct answer. Our opponent does have a lot of normal threats in their deck. And then we'll just plot it. No need to play into removal. And try to kill our opponent all at once. We'll plot a second one here. And then shock in the Otter. Pass the turn. They did not discard during their end step. Here comes an Oculus. Emptiness. They shock that in, by the way, so they're holding up either blue or black for interaction. Could also be holding up mana to try and flip over a card. So let's get the show-offs out. We'll bounce the Oculus. Cantrip. Actually, another steam bench is not bad. We haven't played our land for turn yet. We'll play out another opt. To use a hex means that our Otter is going to survive, can attack past their face down card. And I don't think we want another Otter here. Let's see, we shock this in. They can do this at any time. So we might as well go face. And our opponent just concedes here. We do not have this 1/1 yet. Don't think there's really any change to our game plan here. We're not going to bring in things like Spell Pierce to fight their removal. We'll just run it back. This is not going to be good enough. Another not, no. Brutal. Brutal. Well, I have no choice. Have to go down to 4. At this point, I think we might as well just try and find some of our graveyard hate because it's not going to make much of a difference. And we'll just keep the lands. So, a couple really bad hands there. Not really what we were looking for. And then a Moon Shadow. Now there's a card that we have to answer right away. Luckily we have a Burst Lightning on top. So we can shock in here, take out the Moon Shadow. Iron Shield Elf. So now we need to play out the Soul Guide Lantern. Take out the Moon Shadow. And then pass the turn. The elf can put on quite a bit of pressure all by itself. And there's a Mockingbird. We'll bounce the elf. Has nothing to copy. Comes in as a 1/1. And then I think we plot the show off. Our opponent is still showing removal. Shield Elf returns. And they hit for 1. Still have removal up. We'll try Sleight of Hand. Take a land. Pass the turn. Take 4 here. Another land, not what we're looking for. We will just bleed out to this Shield Elf here. And I don't think there's really anything we can do about it. Removal doesn't work on it, as they'll just discard. Could try bouncing it, I suppose. At this point, we're going to have to just fight through their removal. We won't use any of our spells here. We'll wait until their turn. And then before combat, we'll use a Burst Lightning, make them tap down the elf. To get rid of a Star Cage. So that could have gotten rid of the Soul Guide Lantern. Surprised they didn't play it out sooner. Maybe they're waiting for us to play out more creatures, or they have a second one in hand. And they're just going to hard cast an Emptiness. Not much we can do here. Finally, a Stormchaser's talent. A bit too late. Again, on a mull to 3, our odds of winning this one were practically 0. So we're just trying to play out as best we can, but we don't expect to win this. Try and block the shield elf. They discard a card. We can bounce it. Down to 4. They play it back out. They should be getting pretty close to killing us. We'll boomerang basics our talent. Draw into another land. Play that tapped. Doesn't matter what color. Pass the turn. Moon Shadow, just the 1/1 at the moment, has Menace. Here we have to block both. Moon Shadow grows by 1. And then we can't afford to leave Sulk-Eyed Lantern in play, so we'll have to draw a card here. Stock up is a bit too mana intensive, but we don't have any other choice. Boomerang Basics can bounce 1 card. Sleight of Hand digs 1 card deeper, but don't know what we could even find here. Just a Burst Lightning, so it's going to be game over. If we had 1 or 2 more cards in our opening hand, we might have been able to compete here. On to the next. Match 3. We have won the die roll. We'll play first. And then this is a keepable hand. Start on Steam Vents tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent shocks in a passage, plays out a Mako. So they're going to be cycling through some cards here. We'll get the show off going. They have a second Mako. They have a land to follow up with. Looks like it. Shock in Blood Crypt, and they play out a Flail. So they can discard the whole hand here if they want. We actually wouldn't mind that. We can just bounce their Mako. They just discard 1. So we'll start on a Sleight of Hand, I think. Secret Identity is okay. Can Boomerang Basics the equipped one. And then do we want to Steam Vents as well? Probably. There's another Sleight of Hand. Not the worst. We'll take it. Hit for 7. If our opponent doesn't deal with the Slickshot here, we can win next turn in the air. And a Monument's not going to do it. They can create a treasure when they discard. Discard a Bloodghast, so that can come back. What's the Phoenix do? So they could return this if they wanted. They just hit in for 5. So we'll start with Sleight of Hand. Don't really want either of these. Secret identity. And then we don't have another way to trigger Prowess, but our opponent concedes, so a bit premature on their side. What do we want? Maybe some of our larger burn spells. Bring in Seer. Don't think Graveyard Hate is necessarily correct. Shave a Sleight of Hand, shave a Stock Up. Could try Wan Shi Tong in the air. Spell Pierce is also not embarrassing against the Monument deck. Maybe we'll bring in our Spell Pierce on the draw and reevaluate when we're on the play. I think this looks fine. This hand is slow but playable. Opponent shocks in for another Mako. Don't think we really want to deal ourselves too much damage here, so we'll play the Steam Vents tapped. And they have another Flail, so both games our opponent had a pretty good start. And they have the exact same opening as last game. On the draw, I don't think we're going to win this. It literally looks like the exact same opening. They discarded the exact same card. I think one of their lands is different than last time. We don't have any choice. We have to start pushing damage if we want any chance at winning. Opponent did do quite a bit of damage to themselves with the Blood Crypts already. Pretty sure you can just bounce the Flail back and forth between the two creatures too if you want to buff them both up by discarding your whole hand. That would add 6 power to the board, leaving us at 4. They'll take our other show off. And they have the Hex for the one in play, so we have nothing going on for us. They hit for 6. Floodmaw can bounce one of the creatures. We'll take a talent. Shock in and play out the talent. Pass the turn. Opponent returns the Phoenix. They attack in with everything. We'll block the smaller Mako. And then we'll try to bounce the larger one. So that works. And they play the Mako back out, but we are down to 6 already. Equipping the Flail will make the Mako 4 again, meaning they have lethal on board. No need to equip right now, unless they want to play around smaller burn spells. Can't afford to stock up here, need to use Opt, and we do find a Burst Lightning. So that will buy us a turn or two. Opponent equips. And they have a Iron Shield Elf, so they might have a bit more graveyard synergy than we thought. None of these cards here save us, so we have to go to the next. We'll take out the Spell Pierce that we brought in. We can bring in a couple of the Soul Guide Lanterns. Shave one more stock up. We can counter 2 mana cards. Do we want Ral, Crackling Wit? Might be a bit slow. We'll run this back. Play first. And we'll keep this. Finally, an aggressive opening I can get behind. Opponent leads on a Moon Shadow. That's fine. Boomerang basics are talent. Play back out again. Hit for 3. Can run back the same series of events next turn. Depending if we draw a land, we might want to take out what they play with Seer. They only have black mana showing right now. And they play out another Shadow. And the Flail. This can grow the shadows a bit. They're not terrific blockers yet, though. See how deep they want to go. Spire Bluff is a good pickup. So we'll lead on the Soul Guide Lantern here. Take out the Phoenix. Then we can, we'll Boomerang basics, get more Otters into play before using Seer. Swing for 4. Opponent takes the whole thing, down to 9. Just need to cast 3 spells next turn, which we do have in hand. One of which can bounce our opponent's creature, meaning they'll need to keep 2 back on defense. There's a makeout. Do they have a second creature here? They could always hold back a Moon Shadow on defense as well. They discard a Bloodghast that can't block even if they bring it back. Is the last card in hand to land. Well, they attack in with both, so this should be game here. Could just be the Flail holding priority here. Could be interaction. Are they going to move it over to the Mako? Looks like they are. Good game. Now we don't have to play around anything. On to the next. We have won the die roll again. We'll play first. This hand won't do. Another bad one. This one's not really any good either. Down to 5. On 5, I think we have to keep. We'll keep the sleight of hand here. Play that on turn 1. Probably keep another sleight of hand. Up against the green deck. And I'm not terribly unhappy to see another Slickshot off the top. Would like to draw into another land next turn to really start applying pressure. Badger Mole Cub. Opponent's going to ramp quite quickly. And they have another Elves, so they can pretty much play anything they want next turn. Well, now they definitely can. And we will Wild Ride on one of these. Start pushing damage in the air. Hit for 9. Can win next turn if we string together a couple cantrips with Sleight of Hand and our opponent doesn't have a reach blocker. Earthbender Ascension is fine, as long as they're not playing a fight spell. Grab another land here. Badgermore Cub's going to hit for 8. And a fetch land, so that's actually just going to kill us. Turn 3. $32 power. 7 creatures on board. So here, we definitely want the fire magic. We'll brain torch the tower. Seer is also not bad. Can remove some of our bounce spells. Don't think we need Into the Flood Maw. Some of our high-end cards can go. Let's see if we want anything else from our sideboard. Probably not. We'll try and get game 2. Play first again. And this is a slow hand, no removal. Also not very good. I can't believe the amount of bad luck we've been having. You expect to get a couple bad hands, but not this many. We'll play out the Hatcher, pass the turn. Esper Origins, so our opponent with a significantly slower start this time. We'll start off with a sleight of hand. Grab an Opt. And here, unfortunately, we need to shock in. Stormchaser's talent is fine. We'll take that. And then we can play that out. Get an Otter for next turn. And then hit for 4. Bouncing Say from our opponent. And a World Wagon. So far they haven't given us much to interact with. We'll make Drake. And then Slickshot is a fantastic top deck here. Shock in again. Bounce our Stormchaser's talent. Play out the talent. Swing in. Opponent is down to 5. And we didn't have to show any burn spells this game. So our opponent might not play around them as much next turn. No block here. Opponent just concedes. On to the next. I think we're sideboarded pretty well. We could look at bringing in something like a Spell Pierce for their enchantments. I don't know if that's the right call. Wan Shi Tong is actually another threat that we could bring in. Shave one of the stock ups. Is there a second card we want to cut here, though? Probably not. So we just bring in one of them. We'll give this a try. This is a 1-lander. We have Torch the Tower for a early mana dork. Opt and Sleight of Hand to dig and quite a bit of pressure. Don't like it, but we'll give it a try. Think we need to take out Chocobo right away. If it grows, we won't be able to deal with it. I was going to say this is where they play out the Badgermole Cub and we regret our decision. Sleight of Hand, looking for a land. We get the passage. And I do think we need to shock ourselves again. Another Badgermole Cub. Opponent is going to have infinite mana. Earthbender Ascension. Just have to hope they don't have a payoff for it in hand. Start with an opt here, or do we want to play out the Slickshot? We might actually play out the Slickshot. Play out another Stormchaser's talent, just try and start to push damage. Probably one of our only chances of winning is if our opponent just has more ramp in their hand and they can't really put a threat on the board. Meltstrider's Resolve, fights our Slickshot. No block. Play an opt. Fire magic. We can take that. This will almost wipe their board. Our Otters will grow to 3/3s and survive this. They need a pump spell here. Looks like they might have one. And this will trigger the Earthbender Ascension a bunch of times, so we're actually in a lot of trouble. Have to hold back one of our Otters to chump with. And a fetch land will give both of their creatures trample. Unfortunate. They had the perfect card as their top deck. Opponent has won the die roll here. Another bad hand here. Have to mulligan. We'll keep these 6. Not the best. We'll play out the Otter. It's likely to eat removal. Bitter Triumph. Based on that, I think we will plot the Slickshot here. Opponent plays a Duress. This will likely take stock up. Plot another Show Off. Tap Steam Vents, pass the turn. Looks like this could be Demon deck. Looking to find one of our Stormchaser's talents. There is the Ritual Chamber. Boomerang Basics is a good pickup. Start on Sleight of Hand. And the Otter will have to be the pick here. We can bounce the Demon token. Hit for 10. No need to hold on to the island. And then we'll play out the Otter as well. I expect our opponent to remove one or both of the Show Off here. No block. Secret Identity could help us fly over with the Otter. Don't hate that. This also triggers the Show Offs. And if our opponent has removal, then they're going to get one of these anyway. Try for lethal here. And looks like our opponent doesn't have any more removal. In this matchup, it's going to be a bit tougher. We'll bring in a Ral. maybe a couple Spell Pierce. Some of our weaker burn spells, not as useful. We'll shave some stock up. Maybe get rid of 3 of them. Unfortunately, their creatures are usually quite large. Don't think we want Fire Magic or Torch the Tower. We don't have any way to deal with artifacts or enchantments. Once they've resolved, we can pretty much only bounce them. Think this is the best we can do. And our opponent conceded the whole match. Alright, so there you have the deck. We ended with a 3-2 record, and for the individual win-losses, I think we were 7-6. So just over 50%, which is right on par with what we would expect for this deck. When looking at individual matchups, the Izzet Prowess deck has a 52-54% win rate against most of these decks based on the data available. The Gruul deck and the Esper deck, maybe not as much information out there, but the Monument, Landfall, and Demons deck, there is a plethora of historical data. And so the outcome of these matches really didn't surprise me. A lot of them were very close and came down to the very end. Could have gone either way. We were definitely feeling the variance in these matchups as well. I think overall, if I was giving our hand a rating out of 100, most of those games would be down in the 30%. We had to take a significant number of mulligans, which drastically impacts the win rate of this deck, since we want to be able to play out some prowess creatures and then still need to have cards left over to trigger them. Additionally, I felt like we didn't really draw into our Stormchaser's talent as much as we wanted to, which is one of the most powerful tools in the deck, since it combos off with the Boomerang basics, being able to generate multiple bodies and multiple prowess triggers as well. Slickshot Show-Off felt pretty powerful. I feel like there is a fine line between knowing when to cast it and when to plot it. If you have a couple plotted, then you're quite capable of playing them out and winning the game in one turn if your opponent doesn't have removal held up. Outside of that, I don't think there was anything groundbreaking in the matches. Things kind of played out as I would have expected them to. The cards we found ourselves reaching to cut most frequently during sideboarding were the stock up. While it's a powerful tool, without any fast mana, it does seem to be a bit slow in some of the matchups. And then Sleight of Hand, being one of the weaker of the cantrips, since its sorcery speed, was also usually one of our cuts. As in the best of 1 matches that I played with this deck previously, I still feel that we don't have a good way to answer artifacts or enchantments once they're in the battlefield. A lot of times bouncing one of them isn't really the tempo play that we'd be looking for, and in those matchups we're left with just trying to aggressively kill our opponents. Let me know in the comments below, do you think this deck is as good as people say it is, or do you think that the meta just hasn't really adjusted to it yet, and by the time the next major tournament comes up, this will have fallen off in power level? As always, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content.